What's up guys, welcome back to another video in the perspective series. So we're doing another video here on isometric perspective. Really quick before I get too much into the details of what's going on the screen. If you look in the description below, I do have the JPEG from the last video from isometric perspective in the description. So if you didn't get a chance to grab that, I would grab that now, print it, put it onto a digital software, whatever you want to do. That's what I'm drawing on top of in this video, as you guys can see. That graph behind the drawing, and that's how I'm going to be creating this whole isometric perspective. So I'm doing this video a little bit different. I am doing a voiceover on my video right now as it's going on. So I'm just going to kind of explain what was in my mind. I do want to say this video is sped up just so you guys can get the information quicker. There's a lot of parts where I stopped and I kind of had like a thought process of what I was thinking about. So I sped that up, and I'm not trying to say in any way you guys should work as fast as what's going on the screen, which is why I'm saying this. Definitely take everything at your own pace. Give yourself the time to think. So what I'm doing first is I'm drawing my house, okay? I'm drawing from what I know, right? I gave myself a square baseline, because if you think about it, most houses are built on a plot that is generally a square space. So I started with a square, and now I'm carving into it. I'm figuring out the shape of my house. You know, does my kitchen stick out further? Does the backyard part of the house recede in? Stuff like that. I'm just kind of figuring it out step by step. What I did with that blue line, I divided my house in half because I figured out that the living room, kitchen, and family room section is one half of the house, which is the right side of the house, and then the left side of the house is the hallway and the bedrooms. So I gave myself that division right there with the blue line just so I wouldn't get confused. And you guys can also see too, I wrote down front and backyard just because, you know, in the drawing process I'm going to be flipping my canvas around a bunch of times, so I don't want to get confused about where I am. So I always give myself those guidelines. Guidelines are really important and really helpful in the long run. So a lot of what I'm doing in this part is just basic figuring out, basic analysis, thinking about the space that's within my house. How big are the rooms? Which room is bigger? Why is it bigger? Does it have a bigger closet? Does it have a bathroom included? Stuff like that. This is where I definitely recommend you guys are drawing maybe a dream home of your own. You could start with the square like I did. You can do your own house or apartment or whatever you live in, and kind of figure this out with me. This is not like I didn't have this pre-planned at all. I just recorded myself figuring this out. So use that graph that you guys should have printed out last time or have it printed out this time, and try to draw your house along with me if you can. What I'm doing here is the interior. So I'm figuring out the inside of my house, kind of like I did with the bedroom in the last video, but now I'm just doing on a bigger scale the whole house. And what I'm going to do after this is going to be the exterior. All right, so you guys can see on that left side of the house, I have it now longer than the area where my living room, and right now I'm kind of dividing into my living room and splitting it between the kitchen. It was really interesting to think about what my house would look like if someone just ripped the roof off, and I could kind of see like the mousetrap of what a house looks like essentially. It's a really different perspective. So right here I'm figuring out the garage attaches to the living room, so I'm just kind of thinking like how far does it stick out from the rest of the house. Excuse my random minimizing and stuff. Like I said, this was all kind of just done in one go. I just recorded it and then now I'm voiceovering. Alright, so I'm figuring out a little bit of my backyard plotting here just to kind of have it in as like a grounding point. I think I'm probably going to start going into like the structure of the walls and stuff here in a second. So in digital programs, you have a lot of layer moving around and messing around and trying out colors and different pens and stuff. Sometimes too many options is a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing, right? It has its pros and cons. Here you go. I'm figuring out the wall. So with the wall, what I'm doing is I'm really just trying to get the back structure of it, essentially. I don't want to be drawing the front facing walls, because then I'm telling people that you can't see beyond that, right? I can't see through a wall. So unless I'm drawing an X-ray picture, which kind of gets confusing because you have a lot of lines going on, I'm just going to try to draw that back side of the wall. Just the information of where you might see the back plane. And of course, I'm going to have some overlap here because some walls are going to be covering some rooms. So here I'm kind of drawing my garage. My garage is a little bit higher. The right side of the house has a bit of a higher ceiling than the left side of the house. So I was kind of figuring that out as I go. And I even paused a couple times and just walked outside and looked at my house, to be honest. Like, there's nothing wrong with checking your sources. And my source happened to be the house that I'm sitting in right now. So definitely go outside, check it out, see what you got, see what the roof does. Is it longer on one side? Is it sloped on the other side? It's kind of cool to see it. And then you can also look around your neighborhood and compare your house in terms to your neighbor's house as well, right? See what makes your house unique. So here I'm dividing the room. So I went with a blue to show that kind of interior wall, because I wanted to kind of give it some sort of resemblance that you guys know that it is see-through, or at least not in real life, right? I don't have see-through walls, but in this picture, I wanted you guys to be able to see through. So again, I'm just trying to figure out the space. I'm thinking about the height of things too, right? Like I was talking about with the garage. So I don't want things to get too skewed. I don't want one wall to be bigger than the other wall. So I need to be constantly thinking about that, right? Like which wall is higher, which wall is shorter, and which wall needs to stay the same. So again, especially when I have myself zoomed in here, you guys can really see me going back and forth, undoing, redoing, erasing, making mistakes. All part of the drawing process. If you're someone that gets frustrated with that, I'm just going to tell you, you're going to be frustrated a lot. You kind of just have to walk into these projects letting yourself know that there are going to be some mistakes, but don't let it stop you from trying. I know when I throw something like a graph on the screen, your brain can instantly go, that's too complicated, I don't want to do that, right? But give it a try. Like it definitely is something. It's a new way to look at things. It's a new type of perspective, no pun intended. But it's just a fun thing to try out. You never know, you might really like it. So those little blue lines right there, those are steps. My living room steps down. And now I'm just kind of figuring out the rest of the wall situation. So if you guys see in my last video, what I'm doing the wall for right now is actually my room, which I never even really thought about, but it's kind of right in the middle of the house in a weird way, right in the middle of that U shape. So now I have an interesting new perspective on my room, at least where it is in my house. So again, you never really know what you're going to get from these things. So while I continue to draw here, one of the things you can use interior perspective for, especially, is character development. So when you guys see a movie or you read a book or you read a comic book, a big part of character development is where that character lives, right? Of course, you're talking about country and state or wherever they're living, provenance, but another part is about the house. So a good example, if you guys have ever seen Scott Pilgrim, he lives in a really small studio apartment with his roommate. And that kind of sets you up to realize that he's not a well-off person. He kind of lives humbly or by his own means, and he doesn't have a lot of means, where it wouldn't make sense if the character of Scott Pilgrim was living in a giant mansion, but the story is written that he's also poor. You know, so it's a big character detail to know what kind of setting your characters live in, right? It's pretty important. So I'm drawing my own house here, but if I were to have a character, and let's say they're living in a home, they're living in an apartment, knowing what that person's apartment looks like, their layout, it could tell you a whole bunch about that character that you'll never be able to tell just with words or with showing how your character dress. So if you guys do have any original characters, this is definitely the time to think about, like, what kind of setting do they live in? You know, do they live in an apartment? Do they live in a big old mansion? Do they live in a pool house in someone's backyard? A whole bunch of different scenarios that you can do here. All right, now I'm just kind of blocking in some doors just as some additional structure. After this, I believe I throw in some furniture just to kind of develop a little more of the characteristic of the house. All right, so I picked a purple color here just because it's the only color I haven't really used, and that's what I'm going to use to draw my furniture. So you guys will see I'm going to start going pretty loose with my furniture. At this point, I've already been drawing this picture for well over an hour or so. Again, remember, it is sped up, and I'm not saying that we're supposed to draw this fast, right? I'm saying take your time. I definitely took my time. But again, this was just kind of as a demonstration purpose, so I didn't want to stick too tightly to perfect proportions and everything. I already have that grid there, so realistically, I don't need a ruler straighten everything, you know? So I'm figuring out my living room situation right now. My living room, I have a nice big TV and a couple chairs in there for when it used to be okay to invite friends over. No longer in this COVID-filled world, but hopefully one day we'll get past that. All right, now I'm drawing in a gigantic cat house, which we also have in there. Of course, I have plenty of cats in my home, so gotta give them places to sleep. So now I'm drawing in a ping pong table, which is something that I have as well. Really love ping pong, so it's something that I was adamant about and I was able to buy years ago that I play with my friends on occasion. So this is also just kind of another example of, like, this is who I am as a character, right? So again, just kind of coming back to that point of what does the house say about who lives here and why is this important? Adding on a little shelf right there to the wall. So we have a round table in our kitchen. So what I'm doing right now is how to draw a table in perspective, actually. So it all starts with a square, which might sound really odd. So I'm trying to draw this as a 3D cylinder kind of shape. So that's why I have two boxes going down, or two squares going down, creating a box. And now what you do is you divide that square. If you guys have ever seen any of my perspective videos, you know I do this. Divide it by an X. That shows you where the centers are. And then if you go in there and you find this at about the 3/4 mark right there, and you kind of connect the dots with a nice big curve, that's going to get you a circle in perspective. Sometimes it takes a couple tries to get it down. And so now I'm taking it down. I'm going to race into it, and then I should have a nice cylinder shape, which I'm going to turn that into a tablecloth, just like that. And that is how you draw perspective in any type of perspective. So right now we're drawing an isometric perspective, but if you were to be drawing in 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, that is how you would draw it. If you guys want me to make a quick video too on how to draw a circle in all those different types of perspective, let me know in the comments. I can make that happen as well. We'll just do a nice quick video on that one. Here I'm just kind of filling in my kitchen a little bit. thinking of like where the refrigerator is, the stove, the cabinets, all that good stuff. One thing you want to be thinking about too when you're drawing this is the height of things, right? So like I can't realistically have, I don't know, like a tower in my room if my ceiling only goes so high. So one thing you want to think about is how high, how wide, how big can you make structures in your room? So you can see that everything I keep, it's underneath the line of where I drew that wall. I don't make anything bigger than that because even though we do have a higher ceiling in this house, the actual ceiling above the rooms is lower. And then the roof, you know, the attic section, that's higher. We don't have that. A lot of the attic section is not exposed within the roof or the ceiling of our interior of our house. Alright, so I'm just fleshing out a couple more of the rooms here. Got the 2 rooms in the back, bathroom, master room here. Fun fact, if you guys see that closet at the top right there, that's where my cat likes to hide. Couldn't tell you how she gets in there because it has these really heavy sliding doors, but she pushes her way in there. Alright, so this guy is just about done. So I'm just kind of throwing in a color. I'm going to turn off the graph here in a second just so we can see it without the distraction. And there you go, interior. Alright, so now what I'm doing is I'm jumping into an exterior shot. So I'm taking that ground plane that I already figured out with the interior, and I'm going to draw the outside of my house now. So again, this is also something for setting, right? So if I'm drawing the neighborhood that my character is living in, or maybe I'm just trying to draw a house, I'm just trying to figure out the different shapes that they construct houses around. This is a really good practice. It's another technical skill. This is something that is definitely used in architecture for sure. So again, I'm going in, I erased my walls, I'm going to go in and figure them out again. I'm thinking a little more practically now. I like how actually high the ceiling is or the roof is. I don't have to think about the interiors of the room, so I'm kind of drawing all 4 corners of the wall sometimes, which is just going to help me to figure out, it's going to give me like a nice square ground plane that I can figure out where my roof is elevated on top of that. So that's what I'm doing right here. So I'm on a new layer. I'm drawing with yellow so I can separate it from the blue. So this yellow is not going to exist for a while. I'm literally just drawing it to figure out the rooftop. So now I'm going to find the center here, and that's going to give me the highest point of the roof, right before the roof, because the roof curves down, right? So watch, I'm going to redraw that in, and then now I'm going to connect the roof to the points. And then that's how you're going to figure out your pointed rooftops in perfect perspective, or at least an isometric perspective. The reason you're going to do that is because obviously on the graph we only have up and down vertical, and we only have our left and right diagonal and our right to left diagonal, and those are all on fixed planes, right? You know, you can see the graph in the background is what I mean. And so in order to find this diagonal that isn't on the graph, you have to have that starting point. So I use that square to figure out how high is the roof of my garage. It gives me that peaking point, and then I can connect the dots and create the slant. Here I'm thinking about the height of my living room versus the kitchen and the rest of the house. We have really high ceiling in the living room. I think the living room ceiling goes all the way to the top of our ceiling. No attic space there, but the rest of the house has attic space above it. So the ceiling's wall. This is all in one take, guys, so you know for sure now that I'm making these mistakes. But the living room ceiling, is what I was trying to say, is higher than the rest of the house. So again, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out the ceiling, or gosh, now I keep saying ceiling. I'm trying to figure out the roof for the rest of the house. So what I was doing is I was doing it in comparison to the roof of the garage, because the roof of our The rest of our house, it's all one piece. Well, not one piece, but it's all one, one slanted side. And it's a little bit higher than the garage. Not dramatically higher, just a little bit higher. So I just wanted to make sure I was getting that in there. So here I'm trying to figure out that square shape, because remember, I got to find the center so that way I can find where it slopes. I did make a couple mistakes here that I left in, so I'm going to point those out here. Here I was just trying to figure out if I should have it shorter or not, but I changed my mind and go right back up. Finding my X to find my center. There you go. So I found my center, and I'm going to call my mistake out right here. This side of the roof doesn't go the same way as the garage roof. It actually goes the other way, which I'm going to do in a second. So if you guys don't understand what I'm saying, you'll see. But that's why I kind of pause right here, and I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm going to do all this structure to try to figure out what's going on before I realize my mistake, and then I have to fix that roof. Again, is that kind of annoying? Yeah, for sure, but I mean, it also was a 5-second fix after I figure it out. So it's really easy to get frustrated with these things, I know. I definitely know. But you just want to keep pushing through. So right around here, I'm staring at this. I'm like, why does this look so off? And I actually had to go outside, which is what that drop down was, and look at my roof. And then I was like, oh my God. Because I just looked at my roof right before I started drawing this. But here you go. So now I drew it going the other way. I found my center, still kept that same X. So I was all good there. And boom, and boom. Got my roof in the proper way this time. All right. So when I do all that flipping around too, this is something that you should be doing with your own paper. If you guys have ever watched videos online of people drawing, they also do the mirroring effect, or where they like flip their image over. And this is all to check your own mistakes. It's something that you can do with your own work as well, not something that you can only do on digital programs. So definitely check it out if you can. Always keep yourself rotating, looking at your picture from different angles. It's going to give you a new perspective. Something that also really helps too is to stand up and walk away from your picture for like 20 minutes usually is recommended. And this is going to let you come back to your picture with somewhat fresh eyes. And you're able to kind of analyze your picture from a different point of view. It really helps, to be honest. I know it sounds something like maybe when you're in the mode of drawing, you don't want to step up and walk away for 10 to 20 minutes, but I promise you it really helps. It makes a difference. So here I'm kind of drawing in some sections of where the roof has a little bit of a change. Like I drew in the ground structure there, the kitchen part, which is the top right part of the house there, it sticks out a little bit further, so the roof has a little bit of a different switch there. So that's what I drew in there. Here I'm just kind of figuring out where the roof connects over to the garage. The slope of the garage's rooftop goes underneath the big roof of the rest of the house. Remember, the garage is that the square section at the bottom right there. So now I'm just kind of cleaning up my structure a little bit. I didn't need all that underground work there. So just kind of get rid of the confusion, right? That's one of the things that is really important with perspective, is get rid of the confusion as soon as you can, as soon as you don't need those lines anymore. Be careful though if you get rid of those lines too soon, because sometimes you'll need them and you'll be really regretful that you got rid of them. But it's always good to get them out of the way as well. So here I'm trying to figure out where the garage roof connects to the other roof and what it would look like in perspective. And I'm drawing the most important part of the house right now, which is the entrance for Santa Claus, as most people might know it. Definitely the chimney. At least in California where I live, the only time that you need a chimney is for when Santa's coming down. I don't know anyone personally that sits in front of a fireplace in California, especially as I am making this video in the middle of summer and we just came out of like 3 or 4 100-degree days in a row. So we'll save the chimneys there for Santa Claus's entrances only. So just adding some final touches here. I think it's all finished up. I'm just going to get rid of everything that's being covered by the roof now, because remember this is an exterior shot. And that's going to be it, guys. Thanks for watching.